Yes, we're live. Hey everybody, it's Danny here. How are you doing? Hope you're well. Today, I want to be talking to you about some of the things that we're seeing since iOS 14 that are becoming more and more commonplace, which are namely higher CPMs, and I'll explain what that means in a second, and creative fatigue as well. So I want to talk to you about what both of those things are, and if you're experiencing them, more importantly, what you can do to get around it. Now, I'm going to get straight into this today. So for some clients, in fact, for a number of clients, since iOS 14 came into effect, what we're starting to see is that CPMs are higher, and in some cases they are significantly higher. Now, what is CPM? CPM it's an abbreviation. It stands for cost per meal, and it's a benchmark that an advertising platform presents to you that shows you the cost of running your ad. So it's the cost of 1,000 impressions of your ad. Okay, so the higher the CPM, the more expensive it is to show your ad to 1,000 people. Therefore, if you've got, I haven't even worked out the maths on this, so I don't know. But if you're spending like £10, $10 a day, and you've got a really high CPM, your £10 or $10 per day is not going to go as far as if you had a low CPM, because you want to get your ad out there in terms of impressions, and impression is where somebody sees your ad. You want to get that out there as much as possible so you've got as many eyes as possible on your messaging. So high CPMs are not great. They are not your friend if you're looking to get good results from your advertising. It will ultimately drive up your cost per conversion. So if you are looking to generate leads, or if you're looking to, to generate sales, then your cost per conversion is going to be directly impacted by your CPM. So low CPMs are your friend. They're a good thing. Now, it's not kind of immediately clear as to why CPMs are higher. There's not a very clear indication as to why it's the case. But having done some research and speaking to a few people, it kind of feels like it is to do with the fact that the platforms, and I'm going to kind of talk about Facebook more specifically here, but the Facebook advertising platform, I think they're doing some update. Well, they're definitely doing some updates. There's a hell of a lot of work going into adjusting the algorithm to cope with this kind of new world post iOS 14. So let's just really quickly touch on what iOS 14 means in this scenario. When Apple announced the ATT framework, the application I can never remember what it stands for, but it's basically where people on iOS devices like their iPhones and iPads would have started to see a prompt coming up when they were opening apps that said, hey, do you want to allow this app to track what you're doing? Okay. And lots of people were opting out. Now, what that means from a Facebook advertising perspective, certainly if you're, and I'm talking here more about pixel-based targeting rather than apps, because the Apple iOS 14 update affects two audiences or two types of advertiser: those that rely on the pixel and those that are doing work with app installs. Okay, but I'm not focusing on app installs. This is more about pixel stuff. So for my clients and our clients in our agency, most of them are coaches, course creators, consultants, those types of people. And where they might be using the pixel is they'll be sending traffic from a Facebook ad to a web page, right? And it might be because they want to grow their audience and grow their email list. That's a really simple use case. So they'll run an ad, they'll send people to a web page so that they can opt in for a lead magnet. And then once they've opted in, they'll go to a second page that says, great, I've got your information, check your inbox, the goodies are on their way. And we'll use the pixel to track the trend, to track the progress of people through that funnel, so that we can build audiences and do retargeting and all of that kind of stuff. So if people opt out of that on iOS devices, it means that they can't be tracked. And what that means is that it's having a massive impact on how Facebook are able to target and do all of the clever stuff that they could do with the Pixel previously. So Facebook are working on that, and they're coming up with new ways to kind of combat this new world that we find ourselves in, where Apple are kind of wearing the cape we stand up for the consumer. I don't kind of believe that that's exactly what's going on here, but that's a kind of totally different story. So what this means is that CPMs are going up, okay? And I think it's part to do with the fact that there is work happening on the algorithm and things are just a little bit kind of out of sync at the moment. I think it's going to settle back down, but I think we're in this period of kind of instability and volatility at the moment. And it's not great when you're running ads, but Facebook ads absolutely still do work. It's just, a change that we're having to go through and having to adapt to. And it's also reportedly being seen on platforms like TikTok and Google and other advertising platforms as well, because this doesn't just impact Facebook. Any platform that has an app that runs on an iOS mobile device, an Apple mobile device, when that app starts, people get the opportunity to opt out of tracking via that app. Okay, so look, that's the problem, right? That's the situation that we find ourselves in. And the big question is, well, what can you do? Well, there's no magic formula, unfortunately, to fix high CPMs in this scenario, but there are things that you can do to try and reduce them down. So one of the causes, if we just kind of move away from the whole algorithm update side of things and the instability that's there are things that you can do to drive down your CPMs generally. And one of the causes of higher CPMs is that you've got you're putting the wrong message in front of the wrong audience. It's not connecting, right? There's a very complex part of the algorithm, certainly in Facebook ads, that determines what your CPM is going to be. And if you are running an ad for, I don't know, let's say dog grooming, but you're running it to an audience of, I don't know, cat lovers. That's probably not the greatest example, but you get what I mean there. It's cat lovers, dog lovers. There's probably a crossover, but kind of run with that with me. Go with me on that. If you're running the wrong ad to the wrong audience and it's not connecting, then your CPMs are going to be high. So make sure, first of all, that you're in front of the right audience. That is like really, really important. And you should always do your audience research before you start running ads, of course. And I talk about that in other videos. In fact, I'm going to be doing some stuff on that again later this week. The other thing that you can do is to look at your copy and creative and make sure that the message is matching, right? Make sure that you are connecting with your audience. Make sure that you've got good quality copy and good quality creative, and you're not, you need to give this stuff some thought, because the other thing that you're going to come up against when you're seeing high CPMs is competition in that audience. So Facebook ads, they work on an auction basis. And if you're trying to put your ads in front of an audience that lots of other people are trying to run their ads to as well, then you're going to kind of suffer if you've got A, not enough budget, and B, just poor quality ads, right? Facebook will want to show the best ads, the best quality ads, or what they perceive to be the best quality ads to the audience, because they want to protect the user experience and keep people on the platform for as long as possible, because then they can serve more ads to that audience, and that's how they make their money. Okay, so there are some tips that I would do. The other thing I would think about here is just testing more. Test more audiences, test more creative, test more copy. And I'm going to come on to that in a second when I talk about creative fatigue. So I'm just going to quickly come back into StreamYard and see if there's anybody that's watching. I've just jumped on, nothing at the moment. Okay, I'm going to come back in a second. So I'm going to talk now about creative fatigue, because it feels like gone are the days when we used to be able to let ads just run and run and run for months on end and get a consistent cost per lead. So if I think again about that list building scenario where, somebody's running ads and they're promoting a lead magnet, and the goal is to get people onto their email list so that they can start to market to them, continuously. So it's building their audience. We used to be able to let, if you had a really good quality ad with good creative, good copy, your audience was well targeted, your messaging was dialed in, and you'd kind of triangulated that offer, messaging, and audience piece, then we could sometimes just let those ads run for months and months. But that seems to be a distant memory right now. We're seeing quite a lot of creative fatigue happening, where ads are tanking, the cost per result is increasing, and there are reasons for that. Now, one of the reasons I think this is happening more and more since IOS14 has kicked in is because where people are opting out of being tracked, it means that audience sizes that are targetable are shrinking, right? And that means that the ads that are being shown to that audience are being shown to the same people more quickly, because the audience is shrinking, and those people that are still opted in that audience are a smaller size. Therefore, you're going to be showing those ads to more people. And what we call this the frequency. The frequency is how often your ads are shown to the same person within an audience. So you need to keep an eye on your frequency number. So what can you do if you are experiencing creative fatigue? Well, there's a few things you can do. The first thing you need to think about is optimizing your creative. Okay, you need to make sure again that you've got good quality creative going in front of the right audiences. So, by the way, just to explain, I should have kind of said this earlier, creative is the visual aspect of your ad. Okay, but it kind of, I think in Facebook terms, it kind of folds in the copy as well. But for when we talk about creative within my agency, it's the visual aspect, it's the image, the carousel, the video that you're using. Okay, so you definitely need to test more. You need to test more. And one of the things that we're starting to look at is to have banks of creative, asking clients to come up with more and more and more creative. Now, when you're in a kind of launch scenario where you're in a live launch where you might be promoting a challenge, and then you might have a masterclass, and then you might open cart for 7 to 10 days and then kind of close cart, and you're working in this kind of encapsulated bubble, this kind of fixed period of time that's quite short and finite, then it's not such an issue because you don't have enough time really for the creative to stagnate. But certainly when you're running longer strategies, kind of list building where you should be doing that, if you're, let's say you're the kind of client for us that launches twice a year, right? You do a big launch maybe you do it in March, and then you do another one in September. In between, you want to be building your audience. You always should be growing your audience so that you can have new people getting eyes on your content, building, making new connections, all that kind of stuff. And it's in those list building phases where you might start to see creative fatigue kicking in. So having a bank of creative that you can use, making sure that creative is eye-catching and the messaging is clear, that can really, really help. But it kind of means you just need to create a bit more and batch create it rather than just saying, here's a couple of images, let's run with those for 3 months. Kind of doesn't work that well anymore. It may still do in certain instances, but we are starting to see creative fatigue kicking in a lot more. The other thing to think about here is to switch to interest-based audiences. So with Facebook, interest-based audiences are created based on your interaction on the platform, the kinds of pages that you like, the kinds of websites that you visit, all of that kind of stuff. And those audiences are relatively well protected from IOS14, especially when Facebook are looking at the kind of pages that you like and the way that you interact on the platform, because that stuff all happens on the Facebook platform. So there's no need for any pixel data to come into the mix. It's when you start, looking at audiences that rely on pixel data, like custom audiences where you might upload your email list, or lookalike audiences that are audiences created based on that email list that's based on pixel data. If people start opting out of the pixel and don't want to be tracked, then all of those, the quality of those pixel-based audiences will start to diminish. And it looks like we're definitely seeing that right now. So yeah, definitely optimize your creative, test more, have banks of creative, and then look at targeting interest-based audiences. One other tip that I've got here for you as well that we're starting to see some really good results with is testing really broad audiences that have little or no targeting at all. So we're just looking at people with demographics, i.e. where are they based, what age are they, what gender are they, and then having really, really strong copy and creative to call out the ideal client avatar within those audiences, but not using any targeting. That is, in a couple of instances, working really, really well. So look, I hope that was helpful. We're seeing high CPMs at the moment. I do believe that's going to stabilize and come down. We are seeing creative fatigue, and I think that's just a part of the new world that we operate in. I'm excited to see what Facebook are going to do with the algorithm in the coming weeks and months, to see how they're going to deal with this kind of post-iOS14 world that we find ourselves in. If you've got any questions, just drop them in the comments below and let me know, and I'll be happy to come and answer them. I am going to wrap it up there. I've got a poorly boy who's off school today, so I can't be sitting out in the office for too long. But look, hope it was helpful, and I'll see you on the next video very, very soon. Take care. Cheers.